Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. The weather might have hampered a few people's attendance, which is kind of ironic. Scuba and water keeps them away from front to the meeting.
Yeah,
no. I've been doing this for 15 years, and we've done a couple presentations for you in the past.
Once, maybe another one.
I know Bob led one, and I led one, and I couldn't remember who did anymore. Has anyone been to the presentation before? One?
Yeah, stop, Ethan.
Okay. So, for the most part, our presentation really hasn't changed much from the subjects that we talk about. But what has remained stagnant is like getting this information out to the public. It's been very slow. The drowning numbers haven't really been impacted Great Lakes wide or nationwide. They kind of remain this high number every year. And doing this for 15 years, sometimes you think like, there's nothing new to learn. But, when I was growing up, and actually for some other people in the room growing up, we might have had this fear of quicksand, right? We grew up with like all these movies. This was Blazing Saddle. I think this was Scroll, Beastmaster, Batwoman. But we always had this fear, like, quicksands, if something serious, we're going to have to worry about it. But as we got older, we pretty much just dismissed it. Like, this is never going to be an issue until last year. This guy got caught in some quicksand in Lake Michigan in the springtime. Now, the takeaway from this sand rescue is that how does it happen? Why does it happen? Oftentimes, they will dredge the harbor entryway points, and they'll take that sand and they'll dump it on the beach. And so it's kind of like this, they call it slurry sand. It's really not compact. It's very thick, wet liquid. And he started sinking in it. And kind of just a funny story to start the presentation with.
It's a popular trope in action movies. Heroes like Indiana Jones bogged down in quicksand, racing against time to get out.
Keep your arms above the surface. When the kid comes back, grab on.
But for one Michigan man, that cliche of cinema almost became a reality. Mitchell O'Brien trapped not quite in quicksand, authorities say, but a mix of sand and muck. He says he was out searching for rocks at a beach on Michigan's northwest coast when suddenly he hit a soft spot in the sand and got stuck. His friend, Bree Zika, was there with him.
I thought we needed help instantly, but he was very good at reassuring that he would get out of there and that he was okay.
After 15 minutes to no avail, Mitchell still stuck up to his waist.
The sand was just getting put back almost faster than I could get it out of the way.
To me, those moments were terrifying, honestly, just to see somebody you care about in a situation.
The pair eventually decided to call 911 for help.
He's now got his foot stuck in the muck, cannot get himself out. 5 feet out.
And that's when this action movie turned into a romance.
I referred to her as my girlfriend that's trying to call as well. At the exact same time, she got through to another operator and said, my boyfriend is stuck in the sand.
2 years of this guy being my best friend and just trying to hide everything, how I felt, and then he tried to die on me and becomes my boyfriend in the middle of it.
Firefighters eventually arrived on the scene and pulled Mitchell out within a few minutes.
Patient's been removed from the sand.
Although situations like this are rare, fire officials and Mitchell warn others to be more mindful of deep blue sand.
Go out there, enjoy it, look for your pretty blue stones like I did, but just be careful.
The couple now appreciating how a soft spot in the sand turned into a soft spot in each other's hearts. Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News.
Thanks for watching.
So this will probably be the Hallmark Channel just in time for Christmas. But the point was, there's always something new to learn. A couple people had seen the presentation before or seen aspects of it, but there's still always something new to see for every presentation. Whenever we do our presentations, we always start with an audience survey. So by a show of hands, how many know how to swim? Good news, it's the scuba club. And in the ocean, Lake Michigan, and a pool that would encompass everybody. We do this in elementary schools through high school, this swim experience survey. And then we hit people with a safety pop quiz. Okay, 3 basic safety questions that everyone nationwide should know the answers to. So the first safety question is, what do you do if your clothes catch on fire? Oh my God, you guys are either chewing food or you're shy.
Yes.
So what do you do if your clothes catch on fire?
Drop them right there.
Stop, drop, and roll. You can probably ask anyone, anywhere nationwide, they will know that. Second safety question, what number do you call if there's an emergency? 911. So we got stop, drop, and roll, 911. And third and final question is, what do you do if you're drowning?
No. Basically, cricket been picking.
Not crickets.
Usually you go down quietly, no one sees you, unfortunately.
But if you were drowning, what do you do? So that's kind of an alarming response from a scuba club.
You gotta calm down, see if you can stay afloat. If you can,
Right.
come here.
So we should understand that we've done over 1,300 presentations in 7 of the 8 Great Lakes states to a few 100,000 students and public persons. Well, that's the general response, is that we'll have 95% of the audience say they know how to swim, and less than 5% know a drowning survival strategy.
I guess I would say don't panic and try to signal up to try to signal.
We'll talk about that in a second. But here's another trick question. How many people play in fire?
What?
How many play in fire? Yeah. Wait. This is weird. You guys don't play in fire, but you know a fire survival strategy. Everyone plays in water, and very few people know a drowning survival strategy.
Yeah, so that's not.
But that's what should be the alarm bell ringing. All the emphasis for water safety is, if you want people to stop drowning, teach them how to swim. We want everyone to know how to swim, but we need to understand that knowing how to swim is not water safety. Swimming is an endurance sport that very few people train for. So what we advocate is, if you're ever struggling in water over your head, we want you to flip, float, and follow. It's like the stop, drop, and roll of water safety. Flip over your back and you float to keep your head above water. Float to calm yourself down to fear attack drowning. Float to conserve your energy, and then follow the safe path of water. So we want you to float first. Flip, float, and follow is what we've been advocating since 2012. Float to Live started in 2017 in the United Kingdom. Australia adopted Float to Survive in 2022. Float First was adopted by New Zealand in 2023. But the common denominator here is floats, the most important water skill you can have. If you want to survive a drowning incident, you have to stay at the surface, continue breathing for as long as possible for either self-rescue or for professional rescue to arrive. We're going to learn that a drowning person can't yell for help, they can't wave for help, and panic is the first stage of drowning. And what we see, unfortunately, across the board in the water safety industry is, if you're in a rip current, don't panic. If your clothes are on fire and I said don't panic, is that going to help you? Right? No, you're burning, right? You feel the burn. Your skin is melting, right? It's not going to help you. So don't panic is not a survival strategy. It's important to understand panic, but it is definitely not a survival strategy. Unfortunately, today in America, I didn't know is the number one thing we'll hear from people. I didn't know what the flags at the beach meant. I didn't know that I could drown even though I know how to swim. I didn't know is also the number one thing we hear from family and friends of drowning victims after a tragic event. Didn't know swim lessons were not enough. Didn't know what the red flag at the beach meant. Didn't know we should swim your lifeguards. Didn't know we should teach survival strategies. So we need to understand that water safety is not common sense. People assume it's common sense, but it's not common sense. A little background on me is, since I could crawl, my parents had me in water. I grew up in a place called the Park Forest Aqua Center, less than 45 minutes from here, Park Forest, Illinois. Every summer we had family memberships there. I had swim lessons there growing up, swim lessons at the YMCA. Every summer of my life now, going on 55 years, I've been swimming in Lake Michigan. So I had a lot of water experience. I actually got scuba certified when I was in college at Eastern Illinois University. Sounded like a cool elective. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that it was the swim coach for the college and all of his swim team members in the class. And I had a rude awakening that we're going to be swimming for 20 minutes nonstop at the beginning of every pool section. I don't know if you guys still do that.
No.
Never do that? I was like, this isn't scuba, this is like torture. But, I stuck with it. And, the more you do it, the easier it gets to build your endurance. I learned late in life that you can surf Lake Michigan. This is in Chicago, right across the street from the Museum of Science and Industry. It's 57th Street Beach. We get really good waves if you know when and where to go. This was in Hammond, Indiana by the Horseshoe Casino. Get some nice waves to drop in on. Whiting, Indiana, and the glassy waves, long shoulders to carve. It can get a little icy because our best surf comes in the fall and the wintertime. And the dynamics of it is cold falls, heat rises. So when we have colder air over warmer waters and you put wind behind it, we get a lot of wind friction. North winds, Lake Michigan's over 300 miles long. That's a lot of fetch over the water to create this surf environment. Whenever we're surfing, full wetsuit, hoods, boots, gloves, everything's covered, especially in the wintertime. Now, with any sports, injuries can happen, accidents can happen, wipeouts can happen, and this is my...
December 26, 2010, I was surfing in Lake Michigan. A lot of people aren't familiar with surfing in Lake Michigan, let alone surfing in the winter in Lake Michigan, because it's cold and it's the day after Christmas. And the ice floe was starting to come into the lineup where the waves were breaking. And I started getting a little nervous. And I was thinking, it's probably time to get out. And I'm gonna catch one more wave and I'll be done. And I look over my shoulder and it's like right there. It's a big wave, it's peaking up, and I commit late. And what happened is this wave is pushing over, and as I'm committing late, it catapults me and I land flat on my back in the water. And then the next moment, the wave crashes down on me. And so I get the wind knocked out of me, I got water pouring in my face, coming in through my suit, flushing me with 30-degree cold water, pushing me to the bottom, and I immediately panic. It's a shock to the body, I can't breathe, I'm being held underwater. And I noticed that my surfboard leash is not tugging on my ankle, and realizing that my surfboard, my security blanket in the water, my flotation device, I'm without it. And I make myself up to the surface, and I'm about to try and take a breath, and another wave closes out on me and pushes me to the bottom. And complete panic. All my years of swimming in Lake Michigan at that point in my life, 40 years, is out the window. It's complete panic. I get to the surface. I try waving to my two buddies I'm surfing with. They're about 200 yards out. I put my hand up and try and yell, but I'm choking on water. And when I put my hand up, it increases my body weight out of water and pushes me back under. And I'm going underwater and holding my last breath. And I'm thinking, this is it for me. There's gonna be a knock at the door. My parents and my children and my wife are gonna be finding out that, I died surfing in Lake Michigan. And also in the same moment, I had this memory recall of an article called "Drowning Doesn't Look Like Drowning" by Mario Batone. And in the article, they describe what the signs of drowning is. It's facing shore, mouth at water level, head tilted back, hyperventilating, doing this climbing ladder motion water. And I realize I'm doing all these signs of drowning. The more that I'm struggling to stay above water, the more I'm sinking and dying and drowning. And I got to the surface of the water, I put my arms out and my feet up, and I floated. I realized I can survive this drowning accident with this wetsuit. I can float, I can stay at the surface. But the next problem is these waves are pushing me into the rock wall, where my surfboard is being thrown against it. The rock wall is about 15 feet high, it's all iced over, and I'm thinking, I might not survive that. And I'm realizing, okay, so I gotta backstroke, I gotta get away from this wall. And as I'm backstroking away from the wall, the waves are pushing me back into the wall. And then when I get close to the wall, there's a current that's pulling me further out. It took me 40 minutes to get out. And when I crawled out, I was like, I'm gonna do a community project to promote the signs of drowning.
So I didn't know that I could drown even though I know how to swim. I didn't know a drowning survival strategy. I had never gotten in trouble in the water before, surfing. And it was kind of a big wake-up call after that. After that incident, I went on to co-found the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project. So we have several key areas of operations. We track all of the drownings that happen in the Great Lakes. We teach water safety. We work with family and friends of drowning victims after a tragic event. We train lifeguards and first responders for open water rescue. And then we also do a lot of work with the media. So we have Channel 7 here tonight. Very gracious to have them here today. We also do other, like we call special projects. So we got a life ring bill passed in Illinois as well as Indiana. So if you see those big red weatherproof cases, the Chicago now installed 116 of those, but it's also the North Shore communities as well, and as well as Indiana. So we're pursuing that in other states. We have the education bill going through Indiana coming up in January. We have 2 bills in Michigan that are going through the legislative process. So those are just like part of special projects, things that we do. I mentioned that we work with family and friends of drowning victims. This was 15-year-old Matthew Coker from Tinley Park, Illinois. He knew how to swim, but he didn't have any water safety education. Now, that summer, between his freshman and sophomore year of high school, he was a junior camp counselor, and they took a field trip to New Buffalo, Michigan. Right? Matthew was 6'4", 243 pounds, played football, basketball, volleyball, straight A student. And when they got to the beach, they didn't know that there could be dangerous currents. So Matthew and his friends are playing in the water. He got knocked over by a wave and unfortunately pulled away from shore. But he was young, strong, athletic, very smart. He knew how to swim. He just didn't have any water safety education. Unfortunately, he did not survive. His parents created the Matthew Coker Foundation. They've now sponsored over 640 presentations in Illinois since his passing in 2013. 31-year-old Leonel Dominguez, his girlfriend Evelyn Hernandez, they were in Beverly Shores, Indiana. They didn't know about offshore winds. So if the wind is blowing from the land out to open water, anything floating on water can go far and fast offshore. They were in an inflatable raft. I was going to have a romantic evening watching the sunset. The winds are blowing them offshore. And when they realized that, wow, we're far from shore, he got out of the raft. He's trying to hang on to it, trying to side stroke back to shore. When he's exhausted, he's trying to climb back in this raft. It tips over, capsizes, goes up and in the water. The wind literally picks this raft up and takes it away. Now, there was a U.S. Marine that was home on leave. He was a former lifeguard. He saw what happened and knew they were in trouble. He swam out there. But by the time that he got out there, Leonel had submerged and Evelyn was the only person rescued. So 19-year-old Emily McDonald, 22-year-old Corey Ernster, family vacation in South Haven, Michigan. They didn't know if there's waves, there's dangerous currents. Even though the waves are only 2 to 3 feet, there's yellow flags flying, there's no lifeguards at this beach. It's not exactly sure how they got in trouble, but what we do know is that they took a selfie from the shoreline, they posted it on Snapchat, and 15 minutes after that post, when the first 911 call came in, a female was being pulled from the water by bystanders who are doing CPR on the beach. 5 minutes later, another 911 call. Males being pulled from the water by bystanders doing CPR on the beach. First responders hadn't arrived yet. So these are just 4 fatal drowning incidences out of over 1,300 and I think 92. You had later in the presentation. But almost 1,400 drownings since 2010, where we believe some simple information could have had them avoid the incident or possibly survive the incident once they got in trouble. So I'm here today because I survived the drowning incident. I'm here today on behalf of family and friends of drowning victims. And I'm here today for you guys to share some simple information about drowning that can make us much, much safer. We go back to the survey and the pop quiz that we started with. We really do got to wonder why we know stop, drop, and roll. We don't play in fire. Everyone plays in water, and very few people know drowning survival strategy. And this isn't just Great Lakes region. This is nationwide. This is worldwide. Drowning is a huge public health issue. And it really comes down to public education. We've had fire drills, tornado drills. It's standard now for our kids, grade kids, to have school shooter drills. Even earthquake drills. Many states have earthquake drills, even in Illinois. My kid, home in Flossmoor School District, they were doing earthquake drills. You guys remember the last time we had a earthquake or a fatal earthquake? Illinois and Indiana has earthquake drills in schools. I'm not opposed to that, but we need to understand that the big picture of drowning, it's likely each year more school-age children may die drowning than by fires, tornadoes, school shooters, and earthquakes all combined. So it's a huge problem that very few people have any knowledge of. And the approach is teach everyone how to swim. reduce their fear of water. Don't tell them don't train them as it's an endurance sport, and don't give them a survival strategy. That's unfortunately the current environment we are, and this is after 15 years of pounding the pavement doing this in the Great Lakes region. So drowning continues to be a neglected public health issue. This is from the World Health Organization. So it is a public health issue that continues to be neglected. It doesn't get funding for research, education, outreach, and school programs. So for this presentation, to simplify it, connecting the dots of the research and the statistics so we can identify who's drowning most, when, where, why, so we can be safer in these situations. We narrowed down the scope of the drowning statistics from the Center for Disease Control. Drowning is the leading cause of all forms of death for children under the age of 5. Not just accidental death, all forms of death. So it's a huge problem that new parents aren't being educated on. So for children under the age of 1, bathtubs is the leading body of water where drownings happen. Right? The bathtub is the most dangerous thing you have in your house for a child under the age of 1. Usually the scenario breaks down like this. Someone's giving the child a bath. Parents, siblings, caretaker. And what we think might be a minor distraction, it's the Amazon packages on the porch. I just got the chime on my phone. I better go get it, right? You take that package, you put it on the table, you open it up. 5 minutes has gone by. If the child slipped out of that bath seat and underwater, they can't cry out for help. You have seconds to minutes for successful rescue. So it happens very, very quick. We cannot be distracted around young children around the water. If we're going to get that package, take the baby with you. What we also need to know now, it's turning the tide that when there's an infant death in the bathtub, it's a Department of Family Services issue. Parents are getting charged with neglect, endangerment, and they're already traumatized from the incident, guilt and grief, and now it compiles on top of it, and it doesn't solve the problem. It just punishes people who didn't know what they didn't know. For children 1 to 4, backyard access to water, most common body of water would be a pool in the neighbor's backyard, or there's a koi pond or retention pond adjacent to the property. So, when we're in schools, we'll ask, how many of you have a little brother or sister under the age of 5, right? How many of you babysit them, or you babysit other kids? You lose track of young children under the age of 5, check the backyard access to water first, because if they got in the water, you have seconds to minutes for successful rescue. Most drownings that happen at the home in the backyard pool is not during pool time. It's non-pool time hours. There's a birthday party. They have cake and ice cream. They go in the house. The child goes back out to the pool unnoticed. Now they're not wearing their life jacket. Or some other time. 5 to 14, drowning is the second leading cause of accidental death, second only to car accidents. And for the nation as a whole, it's the 5th leading cause. So it's a huge problem that very few people have any knowledge of. Safe Kids Worldwide put out this report back in 2018, and back then it was the first time ever that open water became the leading body of water where all drownings were happening nationwide. All the years before, it was pools. But there is a pool and spa industry which has funding for research, education, outreach, rules, regulations, laws for building pools, operating pools. It's standard now that pools should have a perimeter fence with a self-closing, self-locking gate. There should be door alarms if there's a door that opens up to the pool area. Motion detecting, turning the lights on at night, or sending you a text message notification. Someone's in the pool during your designated non-pool hours, like during the day or late at night. So open water became the leading body of water where all drownings are happening nationwide. This was updated in 2024, and it got worse. 62% of all drownings nationwide now are open water. 22% pools. So pools are coming down, but open water is going up. When we're in schools, especially high schools, when we look at these numbers, the age group of 15 to 19-year-olds, half of all drownings for 15 to 19-year-olds will happen in open water. And likely a key reason why is this is when they have driver's ed, they get their driver's license, other friends get their driver's license, they go farther and faster from adult supervision with no water safety education. So why not have a water safety component as part of driver's education? You guys are going out on your own now. You're going to have to step up, your responsibility, because it happens all the time. Right now, we got 3 people missing in Lake Erie, a 17-year-old and 19-year-old that went in the waves. And this was Sunday. I mentioned we tracked the drownings in the Great Lakes, 1,394 Great Lakes drownings since 2010. That's as of August 15th. We're at 60 so far this year, but I was just notified today that there's 3 more in Lake Erie. A 60-year-old man that fell off a pier during turbulent conditions, and a 17-year-old and 19-year-old that were entering the water during waves. So this is 63, so 1,397 Great Lakes drownings. When we look at the Great Lakes drowning, on average, almost half of all Great Lakes drownings will happen on Lake Michigan.
Can you comment
On the dips?
Yeah.
So when we look at the dips, a couple things. Comparing it to National Weather Services, we had a lot of rainy weekends. We had a colder spring, cooler fall. Also, another factor that we're kind of looking at now is that the drownings are down a little bit from previous years at this time of year. But what I'm starting to find is, our largest contributor of our statistics is the media covering an incident. And it's kind of like, so Google News Alerts is where we get a lot of our drowning statistics from. And what we're seeing is if a city has a lot of drownings and then they don't publicize it, the DNR doesn't put out a press release, or nobody's at the news desk is watching the scanner or listening to the scanner, they're going unnoticed. Because one thing that has happened this year is there's been several instances that didn't get covered by the media, but there's a lot of Facebook scanner groups now in communities across Lake Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot less local.
Right, there's a lot less local media. So now what's been happening is I got to go watch these scanner pages, kind of scroll through them on a daily basis. And if I see something, I take a note of it, and then I might send that information to the media for them to follow up, so we have some type of public document. Because if you go to, this person was last listed in critical condition, you can say private health information, we can't even talk to you about it. And right now we've got at least 12 people last listed in critical condition from this year.
That you're thinking that some of these numbers might be lower than the actual.
Yes, oftentimes drowning is underreported, misreported, or not reported. And so, like in Michigan, if you were brought to the hospital in critical condition, they put you on life support for 48 hours, and then the family says we're going to turn off the life support, and the death certificate says organ death, right? It doesn't list the contributing factor that drownings will put them in the hospital. So, oftentimes what we see is drowning is misreported, underreported. And this is not just Great Lakes region, this is pretty much nationwide. So, again, we need statistics so we can look at incidences and see what led up to it, where we could have intervened, what, might have been helped with the messaging, where lifeguards on duty, does they have beach flag? Because a lot of beaches don't even have updated beach hazard signs or public rescue equipment. So on average, almost half of all Great Lakes drownings happen in Lake Michigan, and that's largely probably because of the population density along the lake, it's a tourist destination, a lot of access to water, little water safety education, and then the north-south configuration of Lake Michigan, we get a lot of wave activity because of the winds coming across the lake. We narrow down these statistics even more. Who's drowning more, males or females?
Fast question about your previous slide. I would have thought in 2020, that a lot of the beaches were closed technically. You didn't go on the beach. It's like it.
No. I mean, yes, there were a few beaches that were closed, but a little bit, nothing else. A lot of access to it, and so a lot of beaches became free for alls. So, but we had a high number in 2020 on Lake Michigan, and then our largest year was 2018 for Great Lakes 2018, we have 42 non-career lake Michigan. And then narrowing down the statistics to individuals, who's drowning more? Males, foreshadowing picture. 80%, 4 out of 5. So guys, you got a big problem here. Why is this?
Robots.
Bravado?
They're stupid. Our friends done it all.
Top 3 answers on the board. Why are males drowning more than females? What would females say? They would say males are stupid, dumb, showing off. Those are the top 3 answers that high school girls will say about boys in our presentations. But if we why not bounce it back, saying we don't know what we don't know, right? You guys didn't know a drowning survival strategy when I asked you at the beginning survey, pop quiz, right? We don't know what we don't know. There's some subtle differences between males and females, and we don't teach this in school at the moment, really. Males are more likely to take risks, more susceptible to peer pressure they're daring their friends to do things, and they overestimate their abilities. This is like the standard operating mode of men on a daily basis. Risk takers, peer pressure, overestimating abilities. I'm guilty of this as well. I'm 55 years old. I just had my hip replaced in December, and I'm playing hockey 3 nights a week. And it's more of like I, drink a beer in the locker room afterwards. But yeah, we get up. But this is just kind of the standard operating mode of every male from toddler through grandpa. And I do have 5 grandkids. And then around water, it gets worse. The American Red Cross did a nationwide survey and testing where they had males estimate your swimmability, and then we're going to physically test you on. Females estimate your swimmability, and then we'll physically test you on. Females will estimate their true swimmability with almost 100% accuracy, which means they're far less likely to get in water. Males will overestimate their swimmability by about 50%, and they don't even know this about themselves. So again, males don't know this, that they're risk takers, peer pressure, they overestimate their abilities, and they get to water and they double down another 50%. So that's why 4 out of 5 drownings likely are men. We want everyone to know how to swim, and we want you to know your true swimming ability. We should really define swimming as one person going 100 yards, the length of a football field, without stopping. Because every day, every summer, people say, I spent the summer at the beach swimming. I went to the pool every day swimming. When in true reality, they never went swimming. They went wading, right? Knee high, waist high. This water is cold. I'm getting okay, I can throw a football now. I'm used to it, right? Maybe they take a few strokes. But the people at the pool that are swimming, they're the ones that are going laps, doing hundreds, thousands of yards. For the most part, people are not swimming when they go to the pool. But they assume they know how to swim. They know how to do the technique of, the front crawl, the freestyle, the backstroke, the basics. And they take that pool confidence to the open water. If someone's in a pool and they're wearing goggles, 100% visibility, consistent warm water temperature, no unexpected drop-offs, deep end, shallow end. In the open water, wind, waves, dangerous currents, cold water, which can incapacitate your swimming ability, sudden drop-offs even close to the shoreline. So there's a lot more hazards in the open water than the pool. So someone wading out in the water, waist high, jumping in the waves, not really realizing that they're slowly drifting parallel to shore, to where the rip current, there's a drop-off, I'm going to pull them away from shore. It just needs to get them in water over their head. It's not going to, in the Great Lakes, it's not going to be something that's 100 yards long that's pulling you up. Ocean, they have these long rip current channels. Huntington Beach, you can find these videos on where there's this huge channel churning out and then like a mushroom head or turning different directions. Lake Michigan, it might only be 10 feet further out, just in water over your head. So we want everyone to know their true swimming ability, not their overestimated swimming ability, and they shouldn't take that full confidence to the open water. Now, the American Red Cross also did another testing. 80% of Americans say they know how to swim. I don't know 80% that say they know how to swim, but they did nationwide testing. 54% couldn't survive a water emergency on these 5 basic skills. Fall in water over your head and resurface. Tread water for 1 minute, spin around 360 degrees to spot an exit, swim 25 yards, the length of the pool, and they climb out of the water without any assistance. The hardest skill probably is swimming 25 yards, right? So 80% of Americans say they know how to swim. More than half of them couldn't survive a water emergency. And the hardest skill would be swimming 25 yards. And this is in a pool, warm water, calm conditions. So put that in open water, that's a huge problem. And another problem with drowning is people don't know what drowning looks like. They think it's a long traumatic event at the surface with lots of yelling and waving. You can see it. My battery might be down on my speaker. So we'll see a video right here of some samples of drowning incidents that everyone's rescued in these. Oops. All right, let me turn this off and I'll go on your speaker. There we go. Thanks.
The true signs of drowning. Everyone in these videos are rescued. If we watch this little boy in blue with the cup, we need to understand that a non-swimmer can simply step into water over his head and submerge. No yelling, no waving, simply stepped in the water over his head and he's gone. And once submerged, he's invisible because of the glare on the water and the water disruption. So if you do not have eyes on the water and if you do not witness the submersion, you will miss it. Luckily in this situation, the cameraman had eyes on the water and made the rescue. If we watch this boy in the swim lesson, there's a platform in the water where they do the swim lessons. The boy jumps in without the instructor, steps off the platform, and he's drowning. He is not swimming, he is not waving or yelling for help, he is drowning. Luckily there's an instructor there to rescue him. If we watch these teens at this point, he runs and jumps in the water over his head and he immediately starts drowning.
Ever seen?
The cameraman is laughing. He has no idea that this is a life and death situation. One of his friends is swimming over to help him, and the cameraman continues laughing. When his friend is there to help him, the drowning victim simply turns around, grabs him, and pulls him underwater. Now the panicked drowning victim gets his first gasp of air. Now his friend, who was trying to help him, is in distress and just wants to get away from him. But he gets pulled underwater again. The girl swam over to assist, and as soon as he feels her there, he turns, grabs her, pulls her off the wall and underwater. Luckily, they are still at the wall, able to grab it and get out of the water.
Alright, somebody record me.
So drowning doesn't look like drowning. They're not yelling for help, they're not waving for help. Someone's drowning, they might look like this. Her eyes are bugging out through these glasses. Her hands are not breaking the surface. Luckily, she was rescued. But they might have hair in their face. It's a telltale sign. A drowning person can't just wipe that away. It's a normal reaction for anybody, right? But they're so exhausted, trying to stay at the surface, getting a gasp of air, that they need something that floats immediately in front of them. We also need to understand that drowning is time critical. If someone is actively drowning, they will submerge in less than 1 minute. So if we go back to the video, the little boy in blue stepped in water over his head. It was instantaneous. He's there, he's gone. No eyes in the water, you miss him. The other boy in the swim lesson might have lasted about 20 or 30 seconds after he stepped off that platform if the instructor wasn't there. And that teen might have lasted about 1 minute if his friends weren't there to assist him. Now we also need to understand that drowning person is very dangerous. That teen wasn't trying to drown his friends. He's in the moment of drowning. He's in the moment of panic. But oftentimes, would-be rescuers often become drowning victims because the person had climbed all over them, or they just put themselves in a dangerous situation as well. They never make contact with the drowning victims, and then they end up perishing as well. If somebody submerges and we can get them out of water and breathing in less than 2 minutes, it should be a full recovery. But around 3 minutes of submersion, the heart will stop. Around 4 minutes of submersion, irreversible brain damage begins. And at 10 minutes of submersion, we're then just pulling them out of the water. It's likely just a body recovery. Very few people will survive past the 10-minute mark of submersion. We also need to understand that drowning is a respiratory emergency. You must do the rescue breaths. It's a lack of oxygen to the brain. It's a suffocation. So just to backtrack a second, we have a very small window of opportunity if someone's struggling in the water to get them flotation immediately. Less than 1 minute until final submersion, less than 10 minutes to get them out of the water and breathing. Now, the American Red Cross did an update. This was back in 2021. 5 rescue breaths are now suggested for drowning victims. It's 2025. This is 2021. It was at the Red Cross guidelines. It was an update, and it hasn't been widely taught.
Yes.
We still have CPR instructors that don't know about this. We have lifeguards and first responders that don't know about this. Essentially, they go right to compression-only CPR. So we need to understand compression-only CPR has been taught for a long time. It's excellent. Old guy like me fall down and having a heart attack. Someone comes up. You're doing chest compression. Someone's getting the AED. Someone's calling 911. I have oxygen in my lungs. You're beating my heart, getting that to my brain. If I was pulled out of the water unconscious and not breathing, I don't have oxygen in my blood. The compression-only CPR is highly ineffective for drowning victims. You must do the rescue breaths and the compressions.
So this what's new to me is that I've done the CPR fairly recently, as it was based, scuba, right? Yeah. But it's still, they're saying 5 rescue businesses. They're teaching us those 2 rescue.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, that just proves my point. Is like, it makes no sense. It wasn't just the American Red Cross. The American Heart Association also upgraded their standard. And they're not widely teaching this. So it's just something that, we need to understand. If someone's pulled out of the water, scuba, it's a lack of oxygen. You guys got to do the rescue breaths.
Now, how do you make sure the water's clear? That's not what through the water either. Still don't worry about that.
So, have you ever sat at the dinner table? You grab your glass of water, took a quick sip, a drop goes down, your throat closes? That's what happens with drowning. You're in the water, fully immersed, right? A tiny bit goes down your throat closes. It's a reflex. It's a laryngeospasm, right? So, at the dinner table, what's the first thing that comes to mind when that happens? Panic. Sheer panic. I can't breathe. You're sitting there, everyone's freaking out, someone's maybe like pounding you on the back, but you breathe through your nose, it relaxes. But when you're in water, so oftentimes drowning victims have very little water in their lungs if you're there on the initial scene of the incident. Oftentimes when you're doing a little bit may get in the lungs, they may present with a little bit of foam. Now, the standard, especially for first responders, has been if you see something, an object, you get the suction. The thing is the foam that's being produced is from the damaged lung. It's not from water in the lungs. It's called surfactant. Now, if you take the suction, the more you suction, the more foam you create. Now, if you spend 10 minutes suctioning and now you got a gallon full of this foam, they weren't getting oxygen at all at that time. So now the standard is, if there's a little bit of foam, wipe it out with a towel, your finger, whatever, blow it back down, right? And then I had the unfortunate experience of doing this, and as soon as you blow it back down, it's gone. It stops. It's gross. Now, if there's, if there was a training, the oxygen in the room right now, what's the percentage? Is that one up? 21%, right? So I inhale and I exhale. How much am I exhaling?
So it's like 16,
17%, right? So if I'm going mouth to mouth, or I have a pocket mask, mouth to pocket mask on a drowning victim, I'm giving them 16%, which is a small fraction of what's in the room. If you have a bag valve mask, then you're giving them what's in the room, the 22, 23%. But if you have a bag valve mask with an oxygen tank, now you're giving them 100%. It has to be accessible. If it's at a pool, they may have bag valve masks. They may have, oxygen. It depends on what their lifeguards are certified to. If it's open water, not likely going to have oxygen until the first responders arrive, unless there's beach patrol that carries. So That's just something to understand. But we need is a lack of oxygen to the brain that's causing all the problems, for the body shutting down. We're going to switch over to dangerous currents and talk about water hazards. We'll talk specifically about Lake Michigan. From north to south, it's about 307 miles long. The widest point east to west is about 118 miles wide. Wind traveling over water is called fetch. So if we have north wind that's fetching all the way to the south end of the lake, we can get the whole lake moving with waves and dangerous currents. Now, if you were up in the UP and it's a north wind, this would be an offshore wind. The wind is blowing offshore. If you're at the south end, the wind is coming directly onshore. But if you're in Wisconsin, parts of Illinois, Michigan, it's a side shore wind. So when we have these dangerous currents, when we have these winds across the lake, we have several types of dangerous currents. To simplify it so we don't have to worry about our north, south, east, west orientation, whatever beach you're at, if you're looking at the water, are the winds coming onshore? And they're coming side shore from one angle or the other? Or are they blowing offshore? If the winds are coming onshore, you'll have some wave activity breaking on the sandbars near the shoreline, the water's rising up, and you get currents that will funnel out through a trough. They're going straight away from the shore. So if you're playing in the shoreline, and next thing you know, you're in water overhead, you're going away from shore, never swim against the current. We want you to flip over your back and float. Realize you're flowing away from shore, then maybe swim parallel to the shore, and then back to shore. But we also got to remember, it's a life and death headache situation, and most people don't have the ability to swim 25 yards, or half the people don't have the ability to swim 25 yards. So the best thing might be is continue floating and try and signal for help. The winds are blowing side shore or side onshore. We can get long shore currents that flow parallel to the shore. Oftentimes you go to the beach, you put down your towel, you go in the water, and 10 minutes later you're 20 yards down the beach, you're just in a long shore current. You can see these all the time. If you're sitting on the beach, you watch the people and they're going down the beach, you don't really notice it. It goes straight back to shore. A huge problem for young children that may enter the water in a shallow area, now they go deeper, you close to the shoreline, step in the water with your head, right? So we have to keep an eye on hands-on type supervision. These long shore currents become the most dangerous currents if they hit a pier or a structure, and they will go out the length of the structure. So again, if you're in the current, before you're not going to float, realize you're flowing out along the pier. If there's people on the pier, try to signal someone on the pier. A lot of piers now across Great Lakes do have life rings on them that they can maybe throw you a flotation device and pull you to safety. Now, when we have winds and waves breaking into these piers, it can be very turbulent. So this is Grand Haven, Michigan. There's a girlfriend and a boyfriend. Probably the guy's idea. Let's take our brand new mountain bikes out on this pier when the waves are blowing. The wave comes, knocks her over. Her bike is right here sinking. Another wave comes. He's losing his bike. He's looking at her, and he's like, man, I really love this bike. She goes in, the bike goes in, she pops up. He's able to grab her. But we need to understand that these piers are very dangerous. They are slippery when wet, and when water's washing over them, 3 to 6 inches could take you off your feet and put you into the lake. We have Saturday, 60-year-old man on Lake Erie got washed off in the pier or into the lake. There's a photographer standing right here taking this photo, right? He's putting himself in danger. These 3 are in danger. These people are in danger. We're not here, so it becomes dangerous. A lot of piers now, they restrict access during certain turbulent conditions. But it depends where you go and if they enforce them now. Grand Haven, Michigan, South Haven, Michigan, they will give you a $1,000 fine if you go out on the pier when the red flags are flying. Offshore winds, if the wind is blowing out, anything that floats can go far and fast offshore. Like the South Beach. So, inflatables, you really shouldn't have them at the beach. You shouldn't have toy toys at the beach. The most rescues I've done on Lake Michigan have been inner tubes. Adults on inner tubes. You know you're 200 yards from shore? Or they're an inflatable raft. There's a little boy and a duck. 3 people playing tennis. He went for about 10 minutes, about, I don't know, 150 yards out, at a diagonal down the beach. So I would get not stay out of water, water to do well, avoid the hawks, right? So we luckily got the last time. Outlet currents, a river or creek flowing out into the water. Up in Kenosha, the Pike Pier, or Pike River, flows out. They have instances there almost every year. I don't think they've had one yet this year. They really have stepped up their signage along, because there are times when this is fused, right? The sandbar fills, the sand fills in here, but with heavy rains, then it busts through. Leadington, this was last summer. This was 1 week after a fatal drowning. So he was already in the water, and I said, hey, can I film you trying to swim against this current? And just after a night of heavy rains, but it flows out into Lake Michigan. If that looks like the way it's coming in, there you go. So, 1 week before this incident happened, principal of Okaloosa Middle School drowns, right? A middle school principal. You think someone has a lot of education behind, you know how to swim. Unfortunately, he was playing near the mouth of that river. What we need to understand is all of these currents are like a treadmill. You don't have to know the names of the currents. You just need to know that whenever you're in a current, don't fight the current. You're not going to win against it. You're just going to exhaust yourself. Flip over on your backs and float. Keep your head above water. Try and signal for help. Try and ascertain which way the current is flowing. So perpendicular to the flow. Or just continue floating. Some other telltale signs when you go to the beach, the Supporters Lakefront Riverwalk. I had 5 rescues this afternoon. This was 2 summers ago. When you're looking at the shoreline, it's not in a straight line. It's a hybrid scallop. Where the water rises the highest, it will recede the strongest. Okay, so that's where the rip current channel is. We also had some longshore currents flowing. So people were going out to here, didn't realize going parallel shore, now they're in the current and they're going out. I was surfing on this day and my wife was on the beach as well. So she was signaling from the beach, people were in the current. One incident was 2 people and the other incident was 3. Portage Lake from the Riverwalk has rocks here on this wall, and on a picture here, there's another long fishing pier, a couple 100 yards long. So it's kind of like a contained cove beach. This rip current channel is predominant. It really stays in the center of the beach all year long. It doesn't move from side to side. It's pretty much have a pronounced rip current channel right there. And I don't know if you guys heard of Illinois Beach State Park, not very far from here. The state spent $73 million dumping rocks off the shoreline. Oh, a 2-mile stretch, $73 million. Shoreline stability projects. Does this look like shoreline stability? All these curves? They wanted to do it because of, to keep the beach from being, eroded, washed away. But this is the problem they didn't understand is that Lake Michigan goes to like a 10-year, 12-year high and a low. And when they decided to do this, it was the 12-year high, highest water. 2012, 2013, we had record low water levels in Lake Michigan. It rebounded in about 2021, 22, and now it's receding again. So $73 million to put these in there. Last summer, we had the fire chiefs from Winthrop Harbor, Zion, and Beach Park all to say we got a problem. Our water rescue calls are more than quadruple, and we don't know why. So we went and did an in-service training with them and said, well, that's it right there. If we have south winds blowing, you can have longshore currents going parallel to shore, and they can feed into rips. And this can happen without waves. These wind currents, the water is moving at the surface. This point, this sand spit, can get completely washed away. So people go out on these rocks, and then they try to go back, and what now? How far are they from shore right here, right? So here, they're at points of the year, this might be 10 feet, going from this spit to the wall. It all depends. And then we'll zoom in a little closer, right? Big parking lot here, big parking lot here. This is where all the people go. Looking at north winds, I was talking with the surfer who surfs this spot now. He said that when there's north winds blowing, the waves are coming in here, but then we have a curling current here and a curling current here. And the curling current can come here, now it fits here, and this is like it's a bottleneck. So the water is going to flow very fast through there. And then again, right here, you're 10 feet from the wall or the sand, but now here, it can be 50, 60 feet. So unfortunately, the state spent $73 million to increase the water hazards for its patrons. And they have yet to do anything for these fire departments that now are going to all of these calls. And when they're going to these calls, they cannot address a car accident or a heart attack or a house fire. They have pled to the Department of Natural Resources and the state, and as of yet, right now, the state has zero plans for anything. And then this is the fire chiefs coming to the media a couple weeks ago and saying, you still got a problem. And the same thing, northeast wind and waves coming in here, and the currents are going to be flowing through that sand set. I mentioned about staying off the pier.
What would be your suggestion at 6? There's going to be a lot to this player. Unfortunately,
it's going to cost more than $73 million probably. The most immediate, lifeguards.
That's okay.
Okay. The most immediate is updated beach hazard signage, having a fully trained lifeguard program, having public rescue equipment, and enforcing staying off these rocks. Because we've already had there was 2 or 3 already fatal drownings, and probably a few more that were last listed in critical condition this summer. And this is the second summer that this has been in place. Michigan City, Indiana, again, if the pier is wet, stay off of it. These 2 kids got caught out on the pier. They're being strategic by running and hugging these posts. But people get washed off every single year. And was it this wave right here? Was this big wave comes? And if they weren't hugging these posts and being strategic, they could have got easily washed off. And when this is happening, there was a water rescue on the beach at the time. So they were on their own out there. So basics of water safety. Some beaches have beach flags. Beach flags are a tool for lifeguards to use. It should not be used without lifeguards. Kind of like a traffic light. Green doesn't mean go. It means proceed with caution, low hazard. Waves are 0 to 2 feet. Yellow, medium hazard. Waves 2 to 4 feet. Dangerous currents are starting to form. Red, high hazard. 4 feet or taller, you should stay out of the water. That's kind of like a basic standard of how the flag should be used. Yesterday, there was a National Weather Service alert for the south end of Lake Michigan, and Gary, all their beaches, they put up red flags. The waves were 1 foot. They're like, well, the National Weather Service says it's red flag. No, I was like, no, the National Weather Service put out an advisory. National Weather Service says check your local conditions at your local beaches. And they're saying, well, the National Weather Service, right? So it's kind of unfortunate that it's gone back toward. This is South Haven, Michigan. If you go in the water when there's a red flag flying, they will give you a $1,000 ticket. Same thing if you go on the pier. The Michigan state parks, you can go in the water when there's a red flag flying. They just say swimming's not advised. If they put up a double red flag, they can give you a $1,000 fine. So it's consistently inconsistent what the flags mean or the criteria for the flags. It's best only if they're used at lifeguarded beaches. And when you don't want to pay for lifeguards, pay $500,000 for beach lights, is what Grand Haven did. Green, yellow, red, and that will be the double red.
I think blue.
Huh?
What is blue mean? It's blue too.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is for, if that's just a spacer.
Yes.
But the same problem is that they didn't want to pay for lifeguards, so they spent like $570,000 to put 8 of these towers on the beach. And they say they're connected to the National Weather Service updates, and then the National Weather Service says, check your local conditions with eyes on the water. So that's kind of where we're at. Unfortunately, some beaches are starting to
Light up.
Well, that's the other thing. Can you see a light?
I can't see that.
Can you see blue skies, sun shining? You gotta look for the lights. There was an incident last week. I think it was a fatality too. It actually was a fatality. And the guy, his friend was in the water, him, and a bystander pulled him out. The guy said, I never saw any lights. So the thing is, a light's not going to make a rescue. A light's not going to stop someone at the shoreline. Beach flags and beach lights are only effective if they're managed and enforced by lifeguards. So whenever possible, swimmer or lifeguard, their role is to watch the water. They're trained to identify people in risky situations that are about to get in a drowning situation. They are trained and equipped with location devices to safely make rescues. And that's all right here. Swimming at a USLA lifeguarded beach, you have a 1 in 18 million chance of drowning. It's a pretty good number. We've been fighting with Southampton for about 12, 13 years, advocating for lifeguards, and it's finally starting to hold. Around every body of water, you should have a water watcher, put it on a tag. While wearing this tag, I agree to supervise the children in the open water pool, keeping them inside at all times. I will not leave the water area without finding another adult to replace me. So if I'm the water watcher and I'm wearing the tag, now I need to go get a cheeseburger, I put it on another adult, they're the water watcher. And then water rescue is very dangerous. We advise that if you don't have lifeguard training, lifeguard equipment, and start physical fitness of a lifeguard, you should not be entering water to make a rescue. Would-be rescuers become drowning victims. It seems like half of our drowning this year, this summer, have been would-be rescuers. If you see someone struggling, an adult, call a lifeguard, call 911, reach, throw, don't go. We had these installed, the law was signed in Illinois to get these installed on the lakefront in Illinois, as well as Indiana. It's a flotation device, the life ring attached to a rope that you could throw the flotation device to them and possibly fold them to safety. We know that within weeks of these being installed in Illinois as well as Indiana, rescues were made by the public. And now you may go to the beach, there's no rescue equipment, no lifeguards, but there's almost always something that floats at the beach. Coolers actually have quite a bit of flotation. If you can see out the contents, it's not ideal, but it may work in an emergency. If you could get it to the person, if you could drop it off the pier, it's a mess. Soccer balls, volleyballs, footballs, they actually have quite a bit of flotation. If you could throw it with good distance and accuracy, if somebody's drowning, you'd have to land it right in front of them for them to see it, grab it, hug it, puts their head in a high position. You're buying them time, interrupting the drowning position. Boogie boards, surfboards, stand-up paddleboarders, kayakers, more and more water sports are getting involved across the Great Lakes. If you saw someone struggling, ask them to use their equipment to make the rescue. I was at a stand-up paddleboard, kayak, canoe race 2 weekends ago, and there was a capsized kayak, it's a little bit outside the buoy area, and the guy's got a life jacket on, he's just hanging over his kayak, he's exhausted, and 3 people from the event sprinting and trying to swim out to this guy. They just passed about 10 stand-up paddleboards that were just sitting there on the beach with leashes, and they went out there with no flotation device. And I'm sitting on the deer thinking, oh great, I might be strapping this board. But luckily, the race had jet skiers that were patrolling, and someone was able to signal to them to get the jet skier to them. And because the one woman who made it out to him was at the point where she was exhausted, she couldn't even climb onto the jet ski. The guy had to literally turn around and reach over and pull her up.
You talked about the safety grant, especially on piers, because that was actually opposed for a while. People had to fight to have that.
So we went to war with the Chicago Park District for over 4 years about installing life rings on the beach. Every fall they would commit to it, and every spring they'd back on it. And this went on for 4 years. And in this process, we had a couple local politicians get involved where they said, well, the bypass is, get the state to make it a state law. And when it was on the governor's desk, after 4 years of going back and forth, the Chicago Park District proactively installed life rings. But it came to a point where Rogers Park residents were installing life rings on the pier and the beach, And then the park district was saying that's vandalism, we're taking them down.
Yeah.
Right? And
The theory was, and if you put a life ring on, you're just encouraging people to go swimming.
Right.
And that was the theory.
well, there's life rings on the Chicago River. There's life rings
Right on every bridge.
every bridge and every boat harbor. There's life rings. It's not encouraging people to
The North Shore Canal.
I literally went to Promontory Point, and there was 100 people in the water, right? This is before they got installed. I took a bunch of pictures, and I said, there's no life rings here. I don't see how life rings are encouraging them when they're not here.
Yes.
But, and now. I'll wrap up with the rescue scenario. These two teenage girls, Grand Haven, Michigan, playing in the shoreline, knee-deep, waist-deep water, got washed out. This man was going out with the life ring. He was getting pummeled by a wave right here. She was actively drowning, mouth of water, a little head tilted back, her body's vertical. Luckily, he was able to get to her, bring her to shore, and she said that her friend was still out there. Her friend is way out here, no lifeguards, red flags are flying, a couple of surfers are getting involved in the rescue. A man named Zeb Bosco was boogie boarding near the pier, and there's people on the pier pointing over in the direction. She had submerged. She's not waving or floating at the surface. She was just kind of rolling at the surface. He was able to swim much farther out there. He's got a wetsuit with swim fins on, where he can move through the water. Got to her, brought her to shore, ended her off to first responders. They laid her down. They gave her 2 quick rescue breaths. She immediately sat up and started coughing up a little bit of water that she had inhaled, and luckily she survived. So she survived because they were able to identify her as a drowning victim. They were able to get to her with flotation, to get her out of water and breathing in less than 2 minutes of her inside. I know I covered a lot of information. Does anyone have any quick questions?
You got